Welcome to the Urban Complex, a system of interrelated, emotion-charged ideas, feelings, memories, and impulses. This name takes the definition and lays out what a listener should expect. A podcast where ideas, feelings, and memories collide, leading towards meaningful change. I'm co-host Chris Richardson. Please enjoy the journey with the Urban Complex. Smarter cities for a stronger tomorrow.
All opinions by Chris Richardson, Dominic Papa, and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Arizona State University, the Arizona Department of Education, or the Arizona Commerce Authority. Any endorsement of or messages from sponsors or those supporting the production of this podcast. There is no relationship further than podcast purposes with any sponsor unless separately created with another entity. Enjoy the Urban Complex. Smarter cities for a stronger tomorrow.
All right, Chris, here we are, another week. How you doing, man?
I'm holding in there, a little tired. Week 4 of the new job. How about you?
Love it, man. Yeah, I mean, you can feel things are starting to pick up because I mean, my weeks are just smashed now. But it's exciting. Things are happening. Things are moving forward. That just means all good things in our world. I think when it comes to smart cities.
Yeah, a little bit of risk with variants and whatnot, as you mentioned. Hopefully we can get that figured out. But how are you feeling as we come to this guest? I think the Portugal tie might be of interest to you.
Yeah, I'm excited for our guest this week coming to us from Aveiro, Portugal. I just love it because, I think it was 2 years ago I was able to play for Team USA in the 6v6 small-sided World Cup in Lisbon, Portugal. Didn't get up to Aveiro, but I love the country. It's amazing. It's beautiful. The people are so nice. So I can't wait to meet Andre and hear his story about how he's driving smart cities. How did we get him on the podcast anyway? How do we know him? Well,
it's funny. I'm excited because it's the testament of how this works, right? We had Michael Guerin on a couple months ago now. Andre was doing some travel, so he had to push it out till now. And but yeah, it was through a referral. Then we build a digital relationship. I'd seen his stuff on social. And that's it. And he just comes from a great recommendation. And I dig in, and there's a whole tech city behind this. And so, I think that's the whole point of the Urban Complex is we find the best people that know the best people. We get them on so you all can hear these stories and we can all learn together. So it's really exciting to see that the intent of what we thought we designed is kind of coming to fruition.
Yeah, right. We in the Smart City Network, we know each other's stories, but now it's time to highlight these stories. So I'm glad to see this kind of family connection starting to come to fruition. Should we bring him on?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Support for this episode of the Urban Complex comes from Worldwide Technology.
What if we could connect people to new possibilities, turn thinking into a way forward, solve problems before they become a problem, and share the future with everyone? We can. At WWT, we connect businesses to technology to make the impossible possible, to reach better decisions faster, to accelerate progress. Together, let's make a new world happen.
All right, Andre, please let Dom and I give you a warm welcome to our podcast, The Urban Complex. Welcome.
Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Dominic. Thank you very much for this invitation. It's a great pleasure to be here with you.
Awesome. Ours as well. We can't wait. We found our guests like to know a little bit about, or the audience likes to know a little bit about the guests. If you could just start with some information about you. What do you want the podcast to know about who you are, your background, and how did you lead up to your current role? Take your time and we'll get to Aveiro in a minute.
Okay. Well, my name is Andre. I was born in Aveiro. It's a small side city in the central region of Portugal. It's by the coast, and we have a beautiful lagoon that surrounds the city, and we have beautiful urban canals. So I already invite you both to come and join us in Aveiro. Wow. I graduated at the University of Aveiro in management and planning in tourism, and I made also a post-graduation in urban innovation policies. Yeah. I live in Aveiro. I co-founded some years ago an NGO on active citizenship, also here in Aveiro. I am the licensee and co-organizer of the TEDx event in our city, and I work at the moment at the municipality of Aveiro. So, as you can see, I love my town. My life is very much connected. I live here, I studied here, I work here, and I organize, different events and different activities because I truly love the city where I am. What else to be said? I'm married, no kids, one cat, and and at the moment I am the project manager of this Aveiro Tech City initiative that we'll be talking about. And also recently I was indicated as a member for the executive commission for the candidacy of Aveiro to become European Capital of Culture in 2027. That's a very important project and ambition that we have.
European Capital of Culture for all of Europe.
No, I mean, we are a candidate city because it works like this. The European Commission defines for each year which are going to be the two countries that will have the title of European Capital of Culture. For 2027, they decided that it's Latvia and Portugal. So now it's the candidacy process. For instance, in Portugal, there are 11 cities that are interested in becoming European Capital of Culture.
So is this just a way to get the heads of state, heads of each country to get a boondoggle to go to two places each year? Is that what? No, I'm just. It just sounds like an amazing way to pick two places that everyone wants to go travel and really, and have their heads of department discussions. So,
no, I wouldn't say that. I would say that it's a process that it's transforming for the city. The city that becomes European Capital of Culture. All the work that they have to do, 5-6 years in advance, it actually means to transform the cultural and economic dimension also of the city. And of course, in 2027, there's a huge cultural program. I mean, we're talking about 50 million euros investment that is made specifically in the cultural program for the 2 years before and the year of the Capital of Culture. So, of course, there's a lot of tourists that are coming. This started already back in the 80s. At first, the European Capital of Culture was only one city, and it was normally, one of the big cities like Paris, London, Madrid. And then it started also, this title started being given also to medium and small size cities. So this is what is happening at the moment. And again, it's a very important process for us. And it
really is. It gives you a lot of exposure, and it brings forward, allows you to focus your efforts on advancing the city initiatives. Great. So you clearly have Aveiro in your blood. So tell us now, let's bring to present day. What's it like being the head office for economic development and entrepreneurship at the city of Aveiro? And tell us what Aveiro Tech City is, and what's the big picture that you're trying to achieve in your role and with the city.
Okay, well, let's start with the head office for economic development and entrepreneurship. I'm working on different areas, which is quite challenging, and also it's a lot of motivation for me to work in this division. We have, for instance, to secure funding for all the major projects that we have in the city related with urban rehabilitation, health centers, cultural centers, heritage buildings. We have to prepare the applications normally for the European funds that are available. And then, we have to make the financial payments regarding those big projects. We also provide support for entrepreneurs. If you want to create your own business, we have our incubator and the services from our incubator that support the development of those ideas. But we also provide information about the city of Aveiro, about its ecosystem, so that we attract more investors in our city and in our region. We promote the entrepreneurial competences in our youth. This is something that it's very important for us. We started already maybe 8-9 years ago. And now we also included this in our smart city approach with the STEAM competences. because we believe that entrepreneurial mindset, STEAM competences are going to be crucial in the future job market. So we want to start working already with our youngsters on that, and that's also, you know, something that it's coming from this division. We run the municipal markets, not an easy task, but municipal markets and fairs, we are also running them. And as you know, we are also managing the implementation of this Aveiro Tech City initiative that we started in 2018.
That's amazing. I mean, wow, what a background and kind of what great projects you're working on. I will have to say thank you, because, you know, I started my own NGO over here trying to drive smart city and innovation initiatives within the city. So I understand how hard it is to start an NGO, and just hearing your background and how focused you are on your city and fostering civic engagement. That's just terrific. So, you know, thank you for your passion for cities and really driving change within your community. It's great to meet you and hear your story. So I will have to ask you, you know, the fun part about this podcast being focused on smart cities is understanding our guest perspective of what is a smart city, because I think we all know every city, every person, every mayor has their own definition of what a smart city is. So, you know, with your kind of postgraduate degree in urban innovation policy, tell us what's your view of what a smart city is, and then how are you bringing that mindset to your role within the municipality?
Basically, I would say that, you know, a smart city, or what I envision for Aveiro, it's a place where services are made more efficient with the use of digital and technological solutions, but where we are also able to give our citizens a voice. It's not just about, you know, using technology to provide better services for our inhabitants, for our visitors, for our businesses, but it's also about giving its citizens a voice and listening to them about what is it that we can do regarding social services, regarding mobility and transport system, regarding sustainability and urban environment. So I have this, I would say, wide vision or broader vision of what a smart city is, which is also about listening to our citizens, giving them a voice, and also supporting them in developing critical thinking in the process, which I think it's very relevant, because a smart city, you know, it's not really about technology. Technology is the mean to transform the city, but it's really about engaging citizens and supporting them and providing them better services and a better quality of life.
Yeah, that's terrific. You know, I thought you said something very interesting, and I kind of want to drill down on two things you mentioned. I love this idea of giving citizens a voice, but you mentioned something very interesting. You said, you know, because it's also enabling them, you're providing them with a mechanism for them to think critically, right? Getting them to think critically on the issues that are facing the city. So even through engagement, not only are you getting feedback, but you're also actually kind of educating them on the challenges in their community. Is that kind of your take on it as well? Like it's a two-way dialogue.
Exactly. I would even say that it's a two-way dialogue, and also we have a short-term perspective and a long-term perspective. That's why I also talk about how important STEAM education and entrepreneurial mindset education it is relevant in our city. And I will tell you about, you know, this integrative strategy that we have, that it's being implemented in all levels of education, which is exactly about that, about the capacity of our youngsters to have a critical opinion, to work collaborative with themselves, to have this entrepreneurial mindset, and because we want to have better citizens in the future. Yep. But already in the present, we need to do that with our adults, you know, developing workshops with them about themes that we believe are relevant in our society, designing participatory budgets where they can be a part, not only presenting their ideas, but also being a part in the implementation of those projects, because it's the only participatory budget with direct intervention that there is at the moment in Portugal. And what distinguishes it, it's exactly this idea of direct participation. Yep. As a citizen, you are not only asked to give us an opinion and to present an idea of what is it that you think that we should make in the city, but then we ask you to come on board and help us in developing the idea, which is also a way for them to understand sometimes the difficult, bureaucracy that we have to go through, the legal requirements that we have to go, because, it's easier to be said than done. It's easier to say, oh, I want this, but then, okay, come and join us and, see the struggle that we have to go through to put this in place. So definitely, Dominic, what we're here trying to do, it's give the citizens a voice, but also, have them on board with us in implementing some of the projects.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in love with this concept and the way you're approaching it. I mean, the fact that you're starting this entrepreneurial thinking so young in the education system is phenomenal, because, as you mentioned, you're hoping to get a more educated citizenry in the future. But also, you're almost building your own pipeline of hopefully future municipal servants, right? That can bring that entrepreneurial mindset into local government and help drive this sort of innovation internally. I just love the concept.
And at the same time, getting them the empathy to understand how to navigate the system by seeing firsthand how decisions are made, how to embed a frame, like see the framework that's there and figure out how to kind of move around it and maybe with it. I know it's really interesting how you're embedding the whole process there. It's great because if you listen and you give them a voice, but they don't get anything done, then you lose the voice, right? So you're actually helping them where their voice is heard and acted upon. It's great.
Just to give you some examples, we are now implementing the 7 most voted projects from the first participatory budget that we implemented. And as you know, with this pandemic situation, it became even harder to implement those projects. And now actually we have now concluded the voting phase for the 2nd edition of the participatory budget. So this week we're going to have the meeting with the 10 most voted ideas. I mean, with the citizens that presented the 10 most voted ideas. But going back to the first edition, for instance, there's one project which is the bici box. Basically, it was a girl, a citizen from our city, said that it would be very relevant to have parking facilities as a biking box in the train station. And very simple idea, voted by many people because, they want to commute. Maybe they go and work in Porto or in other cities and they want to ride their bicycles and have a safe place where to park the bicycle in the train station. And now she's, dealing with us with the difficulties in finding the company that provides exactly, what we want to install in the train station. And that was a bit difficult, but we found a very good company, and also with the app that allows to open the gate of the shop where we're going to have that bici box. And okay, that was done. But now we're working with a legal framework because the train station is not managed by the city of Aveiro. It's managed by a Portuguese entity, and we need to sign a contract, and we're going to have to pay for the rent of the place where we want to install the bike box, the BC box. So our citizens started understanding, well, now I see that it's not as easy as I thought, because I never even thought that the train station was not run by the municipality. So as you were saying, it's also very interesting to have the citizen embedded in this process and understand the difficulties that sometimes arise.
I love it. Hopefully she'll become a future city manager or a future mayor one day, and she'll know all about it. That's
specifically this girl. She already has a second idea that was also one of the most voted in the 2nd edition.
Oh wow, you've created a channel, that's for sure.
Exactly.
That is awesome. And then one last question, just to drill down for our audience, because they're kind of like me. They really are interested in kind of the governance structure behind it. So you mentioned that your mayor is on his 2nd mandate. Do they have term limits? Is that mayor finished after 2, or can he go for 3, 4, and so on? Because here, for instance, in the city of Phoenix, you can only do 2 mandates and then you're gone. Someone else has to come in.
That's a very interesting question. Actually, the law in Portugal changed a few years ago. So now you can have 3 mandates.
Okay.
Just today in my mail office, in my mailbox, I received the leaflet from his new candidacy.
Okay.
So he's running again. It's the 3rd mandate. He's going to run for the 3rd mandate because elections are going to be in the last weekend of September.
Okay.
So this is going to be, according to the law that it's at the moment in place, the last mandate that he will have if he wins the elections. Awesome. So it's also interesting to see how he decided, also with other parties, that the candidacy of Aveiro to become European Capital of Culture in 2027 was very important, already knowing that he will not be the mayor in that year if we are lucky and if we are successful in that candidacy.
Yeah.
Great to see leaders thinking multi-term, because it's not always the case, right?
And multi-term, knowing that they're not going to be the ones leading the
right. No, exactly. Like it's a selfless act to kind of put the city above the term.
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring that up because I think some people, again, to talk about the difficulties of local government, you mentioned that it took the first mandate to convince him or to get him on board with the smart vision, and then if he only had 1 mandate left, then you're going to have to start that process all over again. So that political turnover can sometimes be very difficult for people like us that are implementing these solutions. So let's shift to partnerships. A lot of our guests have talked about when it comes to smart cities, really helping transform cities. No city can do it alone. It really takes partnerships and collaboration with, either other agencies like that train station or private sector partners. Can you talk about some of the partnerships maybe that have enabled you to be successful? And if there's any specific examples, please provide it.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, we kind of started this journey in the beginning of 2018.
Yep.
And the first thing that we analyzed was we needed to understand what are our assets. And by assets, I mean, what are the assets of our ecosystem? Because if we're talking about economic development, of course, the city can play and has to play a role. But one of the most important roles of a city in the area of economic development, it's also bringing to the same table the most important actors that they have in their local ecosystem. So we needed to understand what are our assets, and let's bring them on into a discussion about what can be our smart city initiative.
Mm-hmm.
So the Aveiro Tech City initiative is led by the city of Aveiro, but we have the direct involvement of other 9 partners or stakeholders that include 3, which are, I think, the most important ones in this process. We have the University of Aveiro. Mm-hmm. The University of Aveiro is a young university, just over 40 years old. It's one of the most, I would say, innovative universities. It's always well ranked in the international ranking, for young universities. And actually, it was created after this ICT public institution that we had in Portugal Telecom. So it was because of that and because of the center of studies that we had in Aveiro related with our Portuguese telecom provider, that the University of Aveiro was created already back in the 70s with a degree on telecommunications. And then, it started growing and growing and growing. And today it's a university with different departments that plays a very important role in the city of Aveiro. I mean, we have 80,000 inhabitants. And if you consider teachers and students that we have at the university, we're talking about 15,000 people that are in the campus of the university. So this was, the first important partner that we brought. The second one was the Institute of Telecommunications. It's a national institution, the best one in Portugal in the area of telecommunications. They have 3 different offices in Portugal, but I would say that one of the most important one is this that is in Aveiro. And they already had this ambition of creating a living lab in the city of Aveiro. They were, talking to us about that idea. And so, okay, we decided, let's bring them on board. And the third most important partner that we have in this process, it's the Altis Labs. Altis Labs is the R&D institution from the Altis group. Altis is a French company. Basically, they bought Portugal Telecom already a few years ago when we had that international crisis. And they are the 17th largest telco company in the world. They have businesses in Israel, France, I think also in the United States, and here in Portugal. And so the R&D institution of the entire group, it's here in Aveiro. We're talking about 600 to 700 engineers that are located here in Aveiro and that do all the R&D for the entire group. You know, when they bought Portugal Telecom, we were wondering, is this going to remain here? Are they going to relocate? But then they understood, okay, we have a lot of human resources potential here, not only those that are already in this Altis Labs institution, but also the connection with the university. So they decided that, you know, the entire R&D structure of the group would be based in Aveiro. So basically, these were, you know, the three main stakeholders that we welcomed on board. And then we designed this initiative, this strategy to support digital transformation of our city, and also to support the attraction and retention of talent. And let me just add also two things that I believe at that moment were very important in this process. This invitation that we made, we realized in the first mandate that two things were happening in our ecosystem. These partners were not communicating. You know, sometimes they would even be addressing the same challenges. Both of them were coming to talk to me, for instance, about 5G. We want to be the first 5G, the first city with 5G in Portugal. Institute of Telecommunications was telling us that, Altis Labs was telling us that, but they were not communicating. And the other problem is that those partners were having access. I believe you know that in Europe, the ERDF funds are crucial for R&D and also for the big investments that city makes. So, you know, we have access to funds. And they were having access to funds with different projects, but, you know, they were not aligned with the challenges of the city. So we needed to take care of these two things. And regarding the first part, already in 2017, we signed a memorandum of understanding between the city of Aveiro, Altis Labs, Institute of Telecommunications, and the university, with a common goal to make Aveiro the first 5G city in Portugal. Awesome. And then in 2018, we started designing this strategy that is focused on 4 axes of intervention: education, training, technology services and apps, and challenges. For instance, the participatory budget that I mentioned before, it's within the challenges. The Aveiro Tech City Living Lab that we have created, now we have it in our urban center with 16 kilometers of fiber technology, with 44 reconfigurable radio units, with a 5G core here in the city of Aveiro. It's already installed. So that ambition in 2017 of becoming the first 5G city in Portugal, it became true just 1 year ago when we had our 5G non-commercial lab already installed at City Center. Wow. And, you know, in these 4 axes that I've mentioned, Dominic and Chris, I mean, there are over 20 activities. And if you want, I can talk you briefly about, you know, the main goals of on each of these axes, but I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah, no, I think that's going to be fantastic. I would love to dive in there, but just real quick, so our audience didn't miss it. So those 4 axes, that's part of the Tech City Initiative, correct?
Exactly.
And what are they?
Yeah.
Slow it down one
time. Education, that's X number 1. Yep. Training, X number 2. Tech services and apps. This is where, you know, technology is, where our living lab is, where the use cases that we are now piloting in Aveiro are. And then there's the challenges, which is very much related with civic engagement. Basically, we present different challenges for different audiences. It can be the participatory budget for our citizens, but it can be the 5G challenges or the urban challenges for startups, scale-ups, or R&D centers, because we want them to develop specific solutions for some of the challenges that we present, and we provide them some financial support for the development of those
Which is an example of the train station box that you were just mentioning. That's the equivalent of a challenge, or no?
That was in the participatory budget. Right. So a citizen presented with a budget, and it was voted. Each year, our participatory budget is around 150,000 euros. Wow. So, we support 7 to 10 projects of approximately 15 to 20,000 euros each. Give it or take, it's more or less like this.
So let's see if it seems to be layering nicely. So when we talk about Aveiro Tech City, clearly partnerships is a foundation. You've got these 4 axes of education, training, tech services, and apps, plus challenges. And you kind of work within this ecosystem, and you're educating long-term to bring people in. Maybe you did say there's like 20 activities in each. Maybe let's highlight, we haven't really talked about the tech services that you provide. Maybe talk about 1 or 2 of those, and then anything else that you think will really resonate if others are trying to get started, and where you think is really core to the mission.
Okay, before I go to the tech services, and just trying to briefly give you an idea, when I mention education, I will just give you one example. We have like 5-6 different activities, but we have the tech labs. And this is developed with the University of Aveiro, again, taking advantage of the ecosystem that we have. And these tech labs, they include 3D printers, Arduino equipments, robots, electrical circuits. And then the university designs specific exercises or games with those equipments that teachers can implement in the classroom, but they are aligned with the educational curriculum. So, you're also learning maths, you're also learning about nature or about history, but you're also, consolidating that critical thinking that I mentioned before, the self-learning, the collaborative work. Yep. And of course, we implemented this in all levels of education. I'm talking about 31 schools in primary schools, 7 from second and third cycle, and 4 secondary schools. And they all have these tech labs. And of course, with different activities and different equipments for the different ages that they are the different levels of education. But it was only possible because we have at University of Aveiro over 16 years of experience in technological and scientific culture. And when you ask me, what is it that you're doing? How is it that we can implement in the city? Many people have asked us that. Many other cities, came to us asking, how is it that you're doing? And I always like to say that, you can't just copy paste. Either you have the human resources, either you have the institutions that will allow you in implementing those ideas, or otherwise it's going to be very difficult. And in this case,
so the cultural element, meaning you've got the wherewithal to invest in the education to create the channels. You've got the city culture that allows to try these things. Is that what you're saying? That it's even beyond? Yeah.
If I wouldn't have this University of Aveiro with this specific, they call it the factory, with this specific area of promoting technological and scientific culture, and with over 16 years of experience, we wouldn't have been able to design this specific program on STEAM education. Because in 2018, what we started was designing the program with all the researchers from the university. So when I'm talking about education, it's this long-term vision that we're going to have this STEAM students that will be ready for the future job market. When I talk about training, that it's more related with the present. And again, what we wanted to do was to implement a responsive labor observatory. We started to diagnose, trying to understand what are the needs from our local economy. How is it that we can support them in the digital transformation of their companies? How is it that we can support them for them to become more competitive? And after that diagnosis that was made with researchers from my field of studies, from economics and management at the University of Aveiro and urban policies. So with the researchers from that department of the university, we made that diagnosis. And now we're just now launching, we're going to start having the first trainings for postgraduate that will have the opportunity to have short-term 50 to 100 hours of training focused on Industry 4.0, machine learning, big data, development of digital content.
Training's geared to those that have already left the education system that are in the workforce. So it's workforce development.
No. It's for those that post-graduated. They just finished their degree. They want to secure.
Oh, it's preparing them for work.
They want to secure a job in our industry. We made this diagnosis to know, okay, what are the type of human resources that you need? And with this small, imagine someone that's coming from mathematics that probably will not be able to find a job as a professor, as a teacher. Yeah. If he goes through one of these small term trainings, for instance, in machine learning or big data, most probably he will secure a job in one of the ICT companies in Aveiro.
Because Portugal youth have a fairly high unemployment rate. Is that correct? Right after university? Just it's been that way traditionally, and this helps cut the cycle down. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, and also to cut the brain drainage, because what is happening in cities like Aveiro,
the best ones leave. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
They leave either to Lisbon or Portugal, or at this moment you can easily buy a Ryanair flight and you move to Berlin or you move to London. Well, now with the Brexit, not so easy in the United Kingdom, but you can easily find a better paid job in another European country. So we need to find the conditions for them to stay. And in this acts of training, this is what we're doing with this labor observatory. And now going to what you were mentioning about tech services and apps. Well, the main project that we have, the main ambition was to create this Aveiro Tech City Living Lab. I can guarantee you that it's the only living lab with such a dimension that we have in Portugal, and surely one of the few, I would say, in Europe. We have, and basically it was what we learned when we visit Michael in Dublin about the living lab that they had in the Docklands. It was also based on that learning process that we started this process in Aveiro. We have 16 kilometers of the latest fiber technology. We have 44 points at urban center with reconfigurable radio units where, you can apply, where you can put some equipment that you want to test to validate your project or your idea. I will give you some examples on this. And you have a 5G core network, a non-commercial network, because at the moment in Portugal, we still don't have 5G. The auction hasn't been concluded, but already for over 1 year that you have a 5G non-commercial network in Aveiro. Wow. So those ICT companies that want to test their products that need, low latency and, what 5G will represent in the future, they can come and test their products here in Aveiro, having the support from Altis Labs, having the support from the researchers from the university. And this is, I think, one big advantage, because we've been attracting some startups, some scale-ups, and some R&D centers to test and validate their products. I will give you one example of one of the goals of the Urban Challenge, of last edition Urban Challenges. The company that provides water supply in Aveiro, it's named Adra. They wanted to have an augmented reality tool that would provide them to have information about, their pipelines, their underground pipelines, but in a computer or in a smartphone. So we launched this challenge. Basically, any company could present their proposal. They would have a budget of 20,000 euros to develop the solution. And this startup from Castelo Branco, a city from the interior, it's the startup is called I'll Be Smart. They came, and for 6 months, they were receiving mentoring from the water supply company, and they were developing the software of this augmented reality tool that was being created. And they developed in such a successful way that now they have already sold that product in Lisbon and in other cities in Portugal. Wow. And when we talk about the Aveiro Tech City Living Lab, this idea that startups can come and they can check, the minimum valuable product of their new service or new product that they can develop, because the market is global. After you test it in Aveiro and it works, you can sell it worldwide.
Exactly.
So this is a good example of the type of, challenges that we have been presenting and the opportunities that we have been presenting to startups.
And you said earlier you're learning the legal side. Did you negotiate a cut for the city that you'll get some of their when they go global? Will city of Aveiro get a little bit of
No. We don't have that in our business model, Chris. It would be smart, of course, but we don't want to take the profit from those startups. Yeah, but there's the legal agreement on that, and when they apply, if they see the norms of our urban challenge, it's very clear that we won't have any revenues on the product that will be created within the challenges. Yeah. But this is one example, regarding the challenges. Let me now give you also one example of something that we're actually doing in Aveiro. That it's one example out of many. But as I mentioned in the beginning of our conversation, we have the urban canals. There are 27 muliceiro boats. It's, if you know Venice, Venice is very similar to Aveiro, not the other way around. Not Aveiro similar to Venice, is the other way around. Dominic, you should know that by now. Yep. But we have these urban canals. And there are 27 gondolas, boats that are, doing touristic tours in the urban canals, and it's nonstop. Aveiro became very touristic for the past 3-4 years, and you have these touristic routes, boat rides being made from 9 in the morning up till 7, 8 in the evening. All year round. It's really all year round. Even in December or January, you still have, less amount, but you still have boat rides boat tours being made. And we decided that we wanted to have only electrical engines in those muliceiro boats. Awesome. So we decided we were going to invest in the charging stations in the urban canals. There are 10 boat operators. They have in total 27 boats, but there are 10 licenses that we gave to these tour operators. In 1 month and a half, exactly today in the morning, I was checking just the first installation of the electrical charging stations. But in 1 month and a half, we will have the 10 charging stations installed. And it was the city that tried to define and design the solution for the muliceiro boats. So 1 year and a half ago, we had an electrical engine company here in a Germany company here in Aveiro, testing in our muliceiro boats so that we would know exactly what would be, the power in the electrical station, in the charging stations, what would be the needs of batteries in each of the boats, taking into consideration the different dimension of the boats and the number of hours that they would be circulating in the urban canals. Because, when you're talking about electrical vehicles in cars, everything is known. But when you start talking about boats, then it's a new field to explore. But we developed this use case. And from October, there's going to be the shift from the fossil engines to the electrical engines. And just with this use case, when the 27 boats have made that shift, it will mean a reduction of 400 tons of CO2 emissions. Wow. So this is one good example of what I think it's a smart city initiative. And in this case, supporting the digital transformation of these tour operators, but also providing much better services, in this case, to our citizens and mostly to our visitors. Because 1 year and a half ago, when we had the pilot, some of the tourists were telling us, oh, we already made the boat tour before, but now we saw that this was for free and that this was with an electrical boat. So we tried to, we wanted to experience it. Yeah. And it's so much nicer. You don't hear nothing, but the water, and it's so much nicer. So I think this is also, a good example of what we're trying to do here in Aveiro.
So now do the boats run till midnight?
No.
I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
The licensing doesn't allow them, but they would. I mean, we could do some hell of a parties there. It's really nice.
That's a great project. Yeah. That's a
with social, isolation and using masks, but we could have some nice boat tours there.
I love it.
Well, we know we got to be cognizant of your time. You can tell that you're just getting started, and there's so much to come. So we'll have to have you back as this materializes, and you go out for the cultural city and that quest for Europe. But we do have a kind of common question we ask our guests: is there anyone that you're particularly appreciative that has helped you in your path along the way? And similarly, if they would be a great guest to recommend to have on the Urban Complex as you've gotten to know Dom and I, let us know, and maybe we'll reach out and see if there's a fit. So as we wrap up, anything that fits in there?
Well, it's not easy. I mean, Michael from Dublin, as I told you, it was great. We had a perfect 2 days visit to Dublin, and we learned a lot from what he's been doing there with him and Jamie Cudden. I mean, also the challenges that we have presented here in Aveiro that we have developed were based also on the learning process that we had there in Dublin. But I would say that besides Dublin, there was also the city of Milano in Italy that we had the opportunity to visit, that we had the opportunity also to know what is it that they were doing. Again, a big city, so a completely different context. But
sure, your wife didn't mind the gifts you brought back from Milan as well, yeah. Some of the best shopping in the world.
Yeah, and it's true. You're right. I actually brought a jacket for her.
How would I know? I've been.
But it was just before COVID-19, hit us hard, and was already in Milan. It started in Bergamo and Milan. We were there in January, and it became global in March. But it was already there.
Right, because of their tie to global shipping, and global trade.
Yeah. But as I was saying, I mean, I've been working with Lucia from the city of Milano. She has been also, supporting us in the development of our Aveiro Tech City initiative. Every time there's, some opportunity for funding in these European programs, she's always a contact that I like to make because she always has great ideas. And I think also, the smart city approach that the city of Milano has been having over the last few years, also they dealt with this pandemic situation. I think it can be a good example for you to have here as your guest in the Urban Complex. I mean, I know that she's now having another role in the municipality. She became, I think, Director of Human Resources. But I would be more than glad to provide you the contact of Lucia and maybe to listen to her in a few weeks after she's being interviewed by both of you.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. And
there's a connection to Italy, Dominic. So yeah,
exactly.
We'll have to come over. No, I love the way you describe that. And again, what we love about this podcast and one about smart cities, it is a family. I mean, we're all trying to help each other, right? We know Michael will be happy to meet Lucia. So I just love this idea of we can always reach out to anyone and get that help and that support. That's great. This has been a fantastic.
Yeah, we go through the same struggles. We go through the same problems. So, let me just tell you this. Actually, this relation with Lucia started in an European project where I had to choose who's going to be the expert that would be, supporting the development of that particular project. And I had, interviewed some consultants and also her. And she was a public official. And, when we talked about, and you understand what I'm saying, we go through the struggle of, we have to deal with the political ambitions from the mayor and the councillors. And we also need to deal with the ambitions and the needs from the citizens. And we're right there in the middle, If we do something wrong, if the citizens don't like, we have a problem, not only with the citizens, but also with our mayor or with our councillors. So, she understands very much the struggles that we go through and, how precise we have to be in every project that we design, because it's not just about, having a good idea. It's, the difficult part is how to put in place a good idea that really affects positively the quality of life of our citizens or the experience of our visitors or the businesses of our companies. And that's really not as easy as it seems. By the way, I'm just saying it.
No, that is the Urban Complex, right? Yep, that's exactly right.
Exactly.
Well, you can tell the passion's there to get through the hard parts. So that's just great. Well, with that, the Urban Complex gives a big note of thanks to today's guest, Andre Costa, Head Office for Economic Development and Entrepreneurship at the City of Aveiro, Portugal, and lead for Aveiro Tech City. Thanks for joining us today, Andre.
Thank you very much. It was my first experience, and it couldn't have been with better guests than both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is great.
Support for this episode of the Urban Complex comes from MST.
MST is a Salesforce certified integrator. We work on building customer experience solutions and deploy them for our customers. As we started evolving, our why also continued to evolve as a company. Over the last 3 years, the whole approach was really revolving around what we call 3 C's, which is customers, colleagues, and community.
All right, Dom, there was Andre and Aveiro. What jumped to mind other than the fact my American humor doesn't translate? Nobody knew what a boondoggle was.
No, I mean, I absolutely love the conversation. I'm so fascinated about the kind of leadership that Andre is doing in Aveiro and just the amount of stuff that they're getting done. I really enjoyed that conversation. In fact, it makes me want to go over there and sit down with him, maybe form a delegation like he did to go to Dublin and Milan. Maybe we go to Dublin, Aveiro, and Milan. But anyway, I'm trying to look at my notes here and just really try to pick 2 highlights that I really want to talk about. One, I have to go back to that, like really focus on giving the citizens a voice, yet the bi-directional aspect of it, also providing them with insight into not only the challenges and bureaucracy and issues,
the process, yeah,
but also getting them to start to think critically about the challenges that they are facing, right? It's, oh, why can't we have a bike rack? Well, let's think.
Yeah, good point. Let's just throw it over the wall, let our city leaders figure it out. Right? No, think through it and actually help and provide solutions. Yeah,
I love that aspect of, not just engagement, because a lot of us, we engage and we think we're done. Right? Yeah. No, but they engage and then they say, okay, you gave us a good idea. Now come help us implement it. I just love.
Well, even beyond that, he's talking short-term, medium-term, long-term. They're educating the workforce. Yeah. They're educating the students on how to even shape and work with them along the way too. So it's got multi-layers in this. It's really interesting to see where things will be in 3 to 5 years with all this investment in time, people, process, and tech, as opposed to what some do is just the tech, right?
Yeah, that long-term citizen engagement strategy is phenomenal. And again, building entrepreneurial skills so that way they have it when they grow up, so they become hopefully better, more critically thinking citizens, so that way it can help the government. But again, as I mentioned this to him on the podcast, is think about how now that's helping attract these sort of entrepreneurial thinking people into government, because oftentimes those kinds of people stay away from government because we can't pay, we don't have much to attract. But if you start young, get them excited in helping to create a city where they want to live, now you have an avenue for public sector servants that want to come into government, right? Because look at him. He loves the city. He grew up there. He started an NGO. He now works at the government, right? We need more people like that, and that's what they're focused on. I love it.
It's like that section of Mitchell Weiss' book, We the Possibility, how he believed that the best people are going to go into government because the opportunity is there. Well, now we need to find ways that create the affinity and keep them, right? It's kind of one of the things he said late in the podcast about how the training side of what they're doing is there. It's not just to help the youth get the job. It's also to help the youth realize that Aveiro is going to invest in them and they feel good about living and working in Aveiro. So they stay there. And so they avoid the brain drain. So it's multi-layered about how they're approached. There's just so much in this episode.
Yeah. And then maybe the last, just quickly, the focus, the driving next, like the pivot that is happening in economic development, moving away from just trying to attract companies and corporate real estate, right, into how do we create platforms to drive next generation economic development, right? And this living lab, the first 5G non-commercial lab where it incentivizes companies, entrepreneurs to come test, but it also incentivizes local organizations to leverage it to drive new products and new services, like the water company example. What a phenomenal project, right? Hey, here's our local municipal water department that is struggling and wants to try to figure out a solution through augmented reality. Why don't we throw it through this challenge process, incentivize the startup to come build the solution, partner with the university for support, develop the solution, provide it back to the water department. But hey, guess what? Now let's go commercialize it and sell it to other cities.
Yeah, I thought it was great that it wasn't so provincial in a challenge that it didn't allow flexibility to the entrepreneur. But they've already got, what he said, 2 or 3 other cities on it. They're thinking big. Everyone's thinking big. It gives them a flag in the ground to point to. Hey, this is what is the intent of Aveiro Tech City. This is what's possible. Come move your companies here or invest in pilots here. Yeah, it's great. I think similarly, I love how he said some of the early partnerships, they weren't really thinking, or at least how they observed partnerships, they weren't really thinking about the local challenges. And I didn't realize about Aveiro. I hadn't been there. And you hear about this, it's the Venice of Portugal. And so he said that these boats, these gondolas have only been working the canals for 4 to 5 years. So they've already got this thriving ecosystem and they're totally using it. And so what they do, they understand their challenges. They're going too late. So probably citizens are upset about the noise. They're probably releasing pollutants because of that's what's happened in the canals in Italy. And oh, by the way, there's a sustainability issue. So they find a way to incentivize innovation. They find a way to incentivize change, because a lot of these places, rather 10 operators probably don't want to invest in the electric, but they probably had these funds to make a kickstart. And you just see how this ecosystem can help influence and create change and move at scale. It's just a great example of what's possible.
Yeah, I love it. It's another example because I'm dealing with this myself right now. It's how do you tell that story, right? Because so many times that initiative could have got stuck with, oh, this is just a sustainability initiative and that's it, right? Why would we fund just a sustainability initiative? No, it has an economic development. It has a quality of life. It has a tourism. It has there's so many aspects to these projects.
It has a city pride thing. I mean, you can tell there's a pride to what's going on with the university and whatnot. There's a lot there.
Yeah. And if you don't tell your story right, that project might not have gotten off the ground because, sometimes you just hear, oh, that's a sustainability project. No, we don't want to fund that. Let's go find something else to fund. But the integrated impact, the systems impact that it creates.
Everyone can relate to something, so it gets off the ground. It gets through the process. Yeah, great point. All right, well, so let's switch it up. So Andre was amazing. It was great to learn about another European international offering. But let's talk cracks in the pavement. What'd you find?
Yeah, I've got a good one this week. It's not technically an article. However, it is a white paper that the Department of Transportation recently put out called Putting People First, Smart Cities and Communities. I just find it fascinating. Secretary Buttigieg is over there now, formerly a mayor, so very focused, very kind of city-centric focus, I would say, that is coming into a federal agency, a Department of Transportation, that, even though they had that big smart city grant opportunity not too long ago that the city of Columbus won, you never really kind of saw this thinking and really the focus on putting people first. And what it is, it's a terrific white paper that we'll happily share, but it really provides kind of a starter kit, a playbook for cities, mayors, traffic directors to understand why smart cities matter and how to go about almost starting your own program to drive transportation and mobility innovation through smart cities. It talks about the benefits of smart cities, the methods of smart cities, even the initiatives around smart cities, like how and why to leverage a living lab to drive transformation in your community to test new technologies out. So I just found it fascinating that already so short into Secretary Buttigieg's tenure that they're already really driving this focus around people and smart cities and communities. I just found it fascinating.
I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but it sounds exciting. What's really great is that Department of Transportation nationally is trying to provide kind of vision, trying to provide some common assets, and trying to bring people in. I mean, we've now had, we had the city of Peachtree Corners. They're doing some interesting things on a localized scale. Next up, we had New Orleans that's trying to do some things bigger for a larger city. And then we've even had LA Metro looking at what's there. And, each of them had to find ways to really go around certain gaps in where they could be, in certain gaps in how citizens perceive transportation, and even certain gaps in terms of tying into either the mayor or the region's approach. And so this will be great to see when we start getting some federal direction as well.
Yeah. And it ties so nicely back into what Andre was mentioning. I don't know if it was on the podcast or after, but the program he mentioned in Spain, where the country set up this kind of tiger task force of engineers that goes around the country and helps cities implement smart community projects, because they realize that, one, the cities don't really have that human resource capability themselves to have these experts help them with projects. But then two, from the country perspective, once you find something that works over here, you can easily then take it and implement it in a similar city or similar over here. So it's good to kind of see the federal government finally get into that, because, I'm trying to set that up in Arizona just as a state to understand, how can we take something that works in Phoenix and then go deploy it in Tucson, or something that works in a rural community here and deploy it in a tribal community there, right? Because from that perspective, you really should be playing that facilitation role. And let me just read this sentence that really excites me, because I think that's kind of where they're heading. But at the very end, it says, the U.S. DOT stands ready to support local governments as we learn together from pilots and begin moving towards integrated, sustainable systems. It begins by listening, learning, and sharing with each other what works, what doesn't, and what's next, right? To me, that's just a powerful statement, and I'm so excited to see the DOT take that position.
Well, if anyone knows anyone at the DOT and they want to introduce them to us and we can help kind of amplify their stories, we'd be happy to. But you're right. I mean, that's what we're trying to do now in my new role in education, trying to galvanize the state, so to speak, to get the districts aligned and figure out the best practices and surface the best ideas. So it's great to see Department of Transportation doing the same. Good find.
We'll have to have Secretary Pete on here.
Work it.
Well, great.
All right. Well, cool. That's a wrap. Thanks, everyone, for joining. We'll see you next time. See you, Dom.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening to The Urban Complex. Smarter cities for a stronger tomorrow. Please find us on where you listen, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. We do love your feedback. Let us know if you have ideas for guests or questions to air on Cracks in the Pavement via social media. The Urban Complex is found on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Or just shoot me an email, chris@theurbancomplex.com. Till next time.